I'm excited to be here. I had a nightmare last night that I came here with no shoes. Oh, it was a really traumatic nightmare, and other women were trying to loan me their shoes, and I have huge feet, and it wasn't working. And I woke up, and it was just a nightmare. So I wore big shoes today. I have boots on, so I remembered my shoes. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So let me just do a quick overview. How many of you have seen me present before? Okay, 60% or so. I'm just going to do a quick overview of the kind of work my business does. So I run a company called Career Solutions Group, and we provide career support. That's a fuzzy concept for people. Sometimes they get it confused with recruiting. So let me just draw a little picture. It's you might be familiar with guidance counselors from high school. That's not exactly what we do, although we do provide career guidance from what paths would be a good match for you perspective. And then sometimes we get confused with being a recruiter, where we're placing job seekers in positions, and that's not what we do. However, we're in the middle in that we help our clients figure out a focus if you need help with that, and focus is very important. We also help them identify effective ways to search, because as you know, the majority of positions don't get advertised. We help with networking contacts, identifying target companies, decision makers, effective resumes. Our chief resume writer is the only nationally certified resume writer in Colorado. There's only 35 in the country, and she writes fabulous resumes. And I have done this presentation before. A few of you may have seen it, but I've gotten such good feedback from people about the concepts that I'm presenting that I was excited to share it again. So, and there's a ton of data in here, so if you saw it before, chances are you're going to pick up some additional details that will be helpful. And my goal, because you're not going to remember everything unless you're super whiz kid, maybe you are, but my goal is that you walk out of here with 1 or 2 or 3 concepts that you're willing to apply in your job search going forward. So are you excited? Ready to begin? Okay, so let's see. I've got my 2-gun shooter set up here. I'm pretty wired, and we'll see if I can work there we are. Okay, so as you know, more than 70% of jobs are hidden. And one of your goals as a job seeker, and I still have people come to me who have been job searching for a while, and they've been stuck in that looking at jobs online rut, which is okay to do. It's okay to spend a percentage of your time doing that. But I have people come to me and the light bulb goes on and they say, okay, I'm getting it now. There's more out there than what I'm seeing online, and I need to find ways to tap into that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in terms of follow-up to ads that you do apply to. The process I'll go over is going to talk about how to uncover some of those possibilities. And a starting point, let's see, I need a packet of information. Let me show you what you have here, because I'll be making reference to one handout in particular. But you've got my card. You also have a blue sheet that if you want to fill out your name and at least your email address, I'll add you to a newsletter list e-newsletter list that goes out about twice a month. It does announce a number of free presentations that the team does in the area, as well as other opportunities. And if you want a free consultation, you can just write consultation on that blue sheet. At the end, I'm going to pass around a little bag, and you can put that in there, and I'm going to do a drawing for 2 books. So you have that. Then there's a little handout, and I'll tell you when to look at one of the scripts that are included with this. This is a cool thing. If you left now and you took this with you, this would be a real helpful tool for you. So moving on. So your trigger when a position is posted, how many of you saw a position this week that looked interesting? Okay, a lot of you. That's good. The market's looking up, isn't it? I have a lot of clients who are finding cool things. That's exciting. So most of you raised your hands today. You saw something that looked interesting, and chances are you applied to it. So this is your starting point. This is what I want you to think about. So a job ad is posted, and you want to apply effectively. Researching the company and the industry. I loved Gordon's story about the fly fisher purchasing guy. What was it? Umpwa? It's an interesting company. So many cool companies out there. There's really interesting stuff, especially in cool Colorado. We have a lot of fun things happening here. But to research the company and industry, and some of you know this stuff anyway, but it's so valuable to get some of their terminology, some of their priorities, some of their mission, vision, verbiage in your materials. So researching that and customizing your materials appropriately. Again, this is not anything new, but it's important that you think about getting their keywords from the ad somewhere in your resume. So very important, you know how they do the screening thing, takes 5-10 minutes to do that, but it is a priority. And then go ahead and shoot it off into the wild blue yonder. Off it goes. And you cross your fingers, right? Okay, so that's step 1 to applying effectively. So now I'm going to talk about some steps for following up. In fact, 17 steps that I found to be extremely effective. And the first 3 are around what I call a 3 strikes follow-up. So as a little aside here, I have a number of people say, so how much did I follow up? I don't want to be obnoxious. We all have the fear of being obnoxious when we apply to a job. So I like 3 strikes, you're out, and you'll see this theme that I talk about in the presentation today. But this is the first time it'll come up, a 3 strikes, you're out follow-up. So the first one, and this, if you walk out of here with one tip today, this would be a really good one to pay attention to. So I had a woman come to me after a NOCONET meeting. By the way, I'm presenting at NOCONET next Monday. Different topic. If you like what you see today and you want another set of information next Monday, I'll be there. She came to me after a NOCONET meeting and she said, people tell me I have a powerful resume, but I'm not getting interviews. I said, let me see your resume. I said, yes, you have a powerful resume. How are you using it? Well, you know, I see a job, I apply, and I haven't had an interview in months. I said, all right, well, here's one little tip for you. So she started, after she applied electronically, that very same day, you know, right as soon as she sent it, she printed a hard copy, cover letter, resume, and at the top of it she would write, second submission, I'm very interested. So you handwrite this. Second submission, I'm very interested, and she dropped it in the mail. So I talked to her about a month later, and she was so excited. She came and she said, I've had 3 interviews in the last 2 weeks. And it's all of those that I'm sending second submission, I'm very interested. She was getting an interview simply from writing second submission, I'm very interested, and mailing a hard copy. And if you think about the hiring process, depending on the size of organizations that you're applying to, I ran a tiny little ad for my company for a resume writer about 6 months ago. I put it on Craigslist. It was a 3-sentence ad. I got 200 applicants in 3 days. They were pouring into my inbox so fast, I was spending less than 5 seconds looking at each resume that came in. Delete, 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 and people are saying, well, companies never get back to me when I apply. I don't have time to reply to 200 people that have thrown their resume at me. So if you think about how it goes for companies, they've got electronic applications coming in quickly. They don't necessarily have a lot of time to spend on it. When you send a hard copy, it slows everything down. They get a tangible something, put it on nice paper, it's worth that. And then they get a chance to say, oh, look, second submission. She's very interested. And you can cut through a lot of the competition that way because they don't want to look at 200 applications. They want to look at 10 that are really interested, and you're one of them when you send a hard copy. So that's a very simple thing to do. Oh, and I recommend you send it to both HR and the hiring manager. And unless you're going for an HR position, the hiring manager is a different person. And you get that, right? And it's not too hard to find out who that person is. Get online, Google their title and the company name, LinkedIn. There's all kinds of ways to uncover that data. Okay, second strike. What I'm recommending here is, so you've sent the electronic submission, you have followed up with a hard copy, and a few days later, you either call or email them and you say, I'm following up on a resume I submitted for the X position. I want to confirm that it was received and find out what happens next in the process. Okay? All right, so this you do 2 or 3 days later. So I want to do a blind survey here, and what I ask you to do with this is you close your eyes. And the reason I do this is because you can be anonymous. So I want you all to close your eyes, and I can see if you're not closing your eyes. Okay, raise your hand if the idea of calling to follow up to see if your materials were received scares you. Raise your hand. Okay, hands down, eyes open. So it's about 50% of you, and I appreciate the honesty with that. I know this is a scary thing to do, but it's scary being out of work, isn't it? And don't you want to find a good position? So find some way you can trick yourself into doing it. And ways you can do that are send an email, if you can get an email address, I also love the technique of calling before or after work hours. 2 a.m. is really good. You're laying in bed worrying anyway, right? So get up, make that phone call. And one of the things that I have provided you with this little handout on the back, when you see the little notation numbers on the back, there's an expanded script. So I'm giving you the exact words to say. You have no excuse not to do it. So 2 a.m. in the morning, you can call when you're not likely to get the decision maker, and you can leave a message. I'm following up on a resume submitted. I want to confirm it was received and find out what happens next in the process. So this is another way, just like the fly guy the fly fishing guy who stopped by the company to say, did you receive my materials? He's standing out from the 200-300 applications they received. He's finding ways to stand out. This is another way to do that. Now, if you're asked for an interview, I'm going to go on a little field trip here. Let's say you're asked for an interview, and if you do these things, you're increasing your chances of being asked for an interview. Then you want to provide any information they need after the interview. So you go through the interview process, you send a thank you note. This is a type of follow-up after an interview, but I'm not going to focus on that for too long. Wrap up any loose ends. This is also a time if you ever walk out of an interview and you go, oh, I didn't tell him about the such and such. Has that ever happened to you? Oh, shoot. Okay, so that's what you can do after an interview and a thank you note. Oh, I thought further about what we were talking, and I didn't get a chance to describe this particular achievement. Here's a brief summary. If you want to know more, give me a call. Always want to send a thank you note. I'm still surprised. It's a small percentage of people who send thank you notes. It's usually like 20%. Doesn't take that long. The Oprah guideline for this, y'all want to know the Oprah guideline? Because Oprah's important. Okay, Oprah guideline is handwritten is worth 3 points, electronic is worth 2, and a phone call is worth 1 point. So however you do it, handwritten, electronic, or a phone call, get a thank you in there. This is after a job interview. All right, and check back on what you discussed in the interview from the perspective of, let's say you got through the talk and they said, all right, thanks very much for coming in. You say, all right, when can I expect to hear from you? And they say, by next Tuesday, we should have our list of second interview candidates. So you can follow up on Tuesday if they haven't called you. Okay, but if you don't get an interview, have you ever applied to something and not gotten an interview? Raise your hand. Okay, a few people in here. So this is the majority of what I'm going to talk about for follow-up, but I wanted to do a little information on following up after an interview. So you didn't get an interview, bummer. However, this does not stop the momentum. There's so many things you can do that will open doors. Okay, strike 3. So remember, strike number 1, someone tell me, was what with right after you send the first electronic? Hard copy, yeah, good, you're listening, good. Okay, and then the second strike was what? 2 a.m. phone call, or something like that, right? Okay, third strike is that you contact them, and I recommend you mix up your communication methods. So if you called at 2 a.m. and left your message, or whenever you call, then your third approach should be a different method, maybe email if you can get an email address for them. And vice versa, if you emailed, then do a call. Because sometimes people love to communicate through email, they're real email communicators, and they are not too keen on the phone thing, or vice versa. So you want to mix up your method. But this third strike, after you've applied to something, I'm still very interested in the X position, I'd love to interview with you. If I'm not chosen, please keep me in mind for the future. This is a very positive wrap-up. It's a simple thing to do. And this could be 2 weeks to a month from when you sent your first electronic submission. Okay, so now that wraps up to some degree that one posting you saw this week that looked interesting. You'll see there's some other follow-up steps in a minute. But now we're going to go a little further on additional follow-up you can do. All right, so this is a networking organization. You're having a chance to build your networking skills, making contacts. One recommendation I make is that a month after you've applied to something, you contact them and say, you know, I wasn't chosen for an interview, however, we're both colleagues in the industry. I'd like to know you, have you know me. There may be ways I can support each other. We can support each other. Yeah, that's it basically. So this gives you something to do a month after you applied to the initial position. Mark in your calendar 6 months after you applied to that first position. Hopefully you won't still be job searching, but just in case you are. Or if the company looked really great and you wanted to stay in consideration with them, keep in mind that within 6 months, 40% of new hires don't work out. Yeah, that's kind of a surprise when I say that. Although if you think about when you've been in situations either as the new person or they brought someone new into your group, it's not necessarily that that person gets fired, but they're not working out. You know what I mean? A little weak link thing happened in there, right? So 40% of new hires don't work out within the first 6 months, which means if you contact them 6 months later, someone tell me what might be happening. What was it? Right here? Yeah, thank you, Mike. So the hiring manager, even though he may not have run right out and put an ad on monster.com or fired the person that he hired 6 months ago, he's thinking this is not working out, and then here you are, super worker, you fly in and say, oh, last November you advertised to fill a position. I wasn't selected, however, I'm still very interested. Could we meet briefly to talk so you can keep me in mind for future openings? And then the hiring manager is thinking, oh my gosh, this person may be my savior. And how much competition do you have in that situation? You against nobody else, right? Would you prefer 1 against 300 or 1 against 1? Right. So anyway, simple thing to do, put it in your calendar. You can send an email. If nothing else, even if he or she doesn't follow up with you about this contact that you make, they have a good impression of your interest in the business. They're going to remember that later. All right, step 3, involve more investigators. So, as soon as or before you apply to a position,